Hey, thanks for checking out another free songwriting lesson with me. My name is Matthew McCloskey, and today we're taking a look at Your Body is a Wonderland by John Mayer. I'm going to show you the top 3 tricks and techniques that John uses in this song that make it so successful. I'm going to show you how to use those same tricks and techniques in your music to take your songwriting to the next level. Let's jump into it. So the first thing that John does right in this song is how he structures his verses. What I've drawn here on the board is the first half of his first verse. We've got the afternoon. Pause. That's what these double lines are here for. You got this room for 2. Pause. You may be thinking to yourself, we've got 4 really short lines that are all about the same length. They all rhyme with each other. Is this too simple? Is the audience going to get bored with this? You know, in other situations with other songs, probably. But for a song that's as sweet as this one is, I think this is a great way to start. And that's for 2 reasons. First, the fact that he leaves all of this space here makes sure that his audience understands what he's saying. When you leave space after a line, you don't have to cram more words into your audience's brain for them to process. They get all of this space right here to really understand what he says here in this line. We've got the afternoon. Okay? You've got this room for 2. Ah, I see where you're going, John. I know where you're getting at with this. That's what this space does. It helps your audience really understand what you're getting at. The second reason that this structure works so well, even though it's the same on both sides, even though it's kind of simple, the reason this structure works so well is because it really reflects the tone of the song. If you've ever been super close with someone, be it a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a husband, a wife, when you're sharing those really, really close, intimate moments, you don't really need to say a whole lot. There's this tender feeling of just being close and enjoying the person being that close to you that words don't really mean as much. And John is reflecting that here. He's keeping his lines short and to the point and reflecting how sweet this moment is. That's why this structure works. Now when we go through a section multiple times, we can't keep it the exact same way that it was before, because if it is the same way, your audience is going to be like, all right, I heard this verse before, I already heard you go through 4 A's like this, why am I listening to this again? I'm bored, and they're going to check out. But John knows that. So the second time through, this is still in the first verse, it's 1 mile to every inch, your skin like porcelain. He changes something up. He does something really, really great. Instead of doing an A down here at the end, he does a B instead. That switches it up. He also makes this line a little bit longer too. So instead of having 4 even lines that are all the exact same, now he's got his A a little bit longer here on the 3rd line, and then B, it's your bubblegum tongue. That makes it what we call asymmetrical. It's not the same on both sides. He set up a pattern on the first one where we had 4 A lines just like this that were all the same length. And when your audience is expecting those, that leaves the door open for you to change things, make lines longer, make lines shorter, change the rhymed word like he does here. And that's what John does, and that's what keeps his audience from getting bored in this verse. I really, really like this line in particular because he's admiring the girl's body in these first 3 lines. These first 3 lines are like these adoring compliments, like 1 mile to every inch. It's so, so sincere. And then he drops this really funny line down here, your bubblegum tongue. Right? It's almost like he's kind of elbowing the girl a little bit, like, your bubblegum tongue, babe. You know, it's a funny little playful line, so it's cool to surprise people, right? You can have one tone going throughout this verse and then switch it up right at the end. It keeps your audience from getting bored. So remember that, as you're writing your lyrics and you're writing your structures, how do you keep these fresh? How do you switch them up from verse to verse and chorus to chorus? How do I change this up and make it fresh? Because if you just do copy-paste, all right, well, this is the structure in the last verse, so I'm just going to use it again, your audience is going to get bored. Like, I heard this structure already. Why aren't you changing it? The second verse, the reason it works so well, John changes it up again. Instead of doing what we did in the second half of the first verse, instead of repeating that because the audience has already heard it, he does something different. He actually makes these lines longer, and he switches this. Instead of making that an A, now it's a B, and these lines are longer too. I really love the way the hair falls in your face. I love the shape you make when crawling towards the pillowcase. So now we're expecting another A right here, but he chooses to not give us that. You tell me where to go, and though I might leave to find it, I'll never let your head hit the bed without my hand behind it. That's cool because not is he only changing up his rhyme scheme from before, but he's also made these lines longer. So as you're writing your verses, think about how can I switch this up verse to verse to keep it fresh, to keep my audience from getting bored. That's going to go a long way towards making sure your song is a success. The second thing that John does really, really well in this song is his chord progression. Remember, we just went through the verses, and there's a lot of stuff changing up in the verses and in the choruses too. So with all that stuff changing, it really makes sense to have something rock solid as your foundation for chords. Because if you're changing your chords like crazy too, like your audience might get a little overwhelmed, right? There is such a thing as too much change. If you're moving your chords all over the place and you're changing your lyrical structure, you come out sounding like just gibberish and people are like, I don't know what's going on, right? That's too much. That's why John uses this instead. This is a very simple chord progression. We go F, C, B flat, C. If you really like these chords, the great way to use them in your song without ripping John Mayer off is to move them to another key. And we do that using the Nashville number system. There's a link in the description for the Nashville number system. It's going to explain what I'm going to do here. Make sure you grab that. It's going to help you a ton in your songwriting. So the way to use the Nashville number system, the first thing you need to know is what key you're in. So in this case, I'll tell you, we're in the key of F. Once you know that, you can assign numbers to all the chords in the progression. So if we're in the key of F, F becomes our 1, because that's what the key is named after. Then C becomes our 5, B flat becomes our 4, and C is also a 5. Now you have numbers instead of chords. You can use these in another key if you know what number corresponds to each chord in that key. And that's what the handout in the description is going to help you to do, so make sure you go grab that. Let's say you want to write in the key of A, for example, right? So if we're writing in the key of A, 1 becomes A, 5 is E, 4 is D, 5 is also E. You now have an entirely brand new progression, A, E, D, E, that you can use in your own song. Now the great thing about it is that it's going to sound kind of like this, but it's not going to be the same chords. So if you really like John Mayer and you really like the song, you want to write something similar but not identical, use the Nashville number system. Borrow these chords and bring them into something else that you're working on. Twist it and make it your own. That's what people mean when they talk about making it your own. It's borrowing from people that you really, really like and then twisting it and bringing it into your own music. The third thing that John does really, really well in this song that make it so successful are his lyrics. All of the lyrics in this song are really, really good, but I'm going to be looking at the pre-chorus in particular. This starts with, and if you want love, we'll make it. Swim in a deep sea of blankets. The reason these lyrics work so well, with the exception of the first line, this is a really, really direct line, and we'll get to that in a second, but these 3 lines in particular are great at show, don't tell. It's clear that this song is about romance. But John, with the exception of this line, where he directly comes out and says, and if you want love, we'll make it, which is still a really sweet thing to say, for the most part, he doesn't really come out and focus on that in the song. He doesn't keep hammering it in like, we are going to have sex, we are in bed, blah, 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 blah. Instead, he shows his listener that he's feeling really, really sentimental towards this girl that he's with. In this line right here, the reason this line, swim in a deep sea of blankets, that's a really, really cool metaphor. A metaphor is where you use an image to make something that kind of seems mundane on its own feel bigger and cooler. It gives it some additional depth. So if you say right here, for example, you could say, we'll go right under these blankets. That's not very romantic, is it? But if you say, swim in a deep sea of blankets, that sounds adventurous. That sounds big, right? That's a great thing that metaphor is for. Instead of saying it was a really tall building, you could say it was a mountain of a building. Instead of saying he was a really short man, like I'm 5'6", you could say he was a dwarf of a man. That gives it some extra color and some extra depth. And this makes it sound really adventurous. And this line right here, take all your big plans and break them. That's a very concise, to the point way of saying that John has made a huge impact in this girl's life. She had all of these different plans, and yet they're so amazing together that she's refocusing her life around him and what they have here in this moment, right? That's a really, really romantic line. And this last one right here is the kicker. This is bound to be a while. That is such a great line. It's so sexy because what John is saying, without saying it, he's showing, not telling. What he's saying in this line, he's like, we are going to be having sex for a long time. which is kind of funny, but like it's also really romantic. Have you ever heard someone say like, let's make love all night, right? That's what John's saying right here. This is bound to be a while. That's a really, really sweet, sexy thing to say, and that's why this section works so well. So remember, think about metaphor, think about ways that you can use words that don't necessarily belong in the context you're in, like a sea doesn't really belong in a bedroom, a mountain doesn't really belong in a city, but if you bring them into those environments, they really help add some depth. And then think of ways that you can show, don't tell your audience. Don't tell the girl that you're singing to, I want to make love to you all night. Find a different way to say it, like this is going to be a while. Thanks for checking this video out. I hope what I've explained here today has been useful to you and it's helped further your songwriting in some way. If anything I've covered in this video is unclear to you, or if there was something in this song that you want to hear me go into more depth on, send me a comment in the section. I read all of them and I want to make sure I'm helping you guys. Please subscribe to this channel for more videos in the future. I would love to have you guys along for the ride. If you have any ideas for songs that I can do in the future that you think are great, or artists that you think write really well, send me those in the comment section as well. I'm always on the hunt for new music that I can analyze for you guys. And lastly, make sure you grab that download of the Nashville Number System in the description. That's going to help you a ton in your songwriting. My name is Matthew McCloskey. Thanks again for checking out this video, and I will see you guys next time.